Okay, we are recording.
Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled October 15th meeting of the Utilities Commission of the Town of New Canaan. I'm going to call the roll. Rich Townsend is absent. Sven England, me, I will serve as chairman for this meeting. Jill Gazzetti? No. Hiram, are you out there?
I'm here.
Cool, okay. We just don't have a picture, but okay. An icon is good enough. Krista Kennan,
Here.
Mike Collins,
Here.
Bernie Clark,
Here.
Janae Hunter, Kareem Kerr, he's there.
And
Okay.
with the picture.
Yeah.
You're in your office all alone except for the cleaning people. Okay. So we have a quorum. Let's see, we need to do
Minutes.
the minutes first. We have the minutes of the September 17th meeting. Did anybody have any additions, corrections, or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as read. Krista is made the motion. Right, Tom? All in favor?
Hi.
Okay, that seems to be unanimous.
Mhm.
Excellent. Let's see. Public comment?
You want to call the vote for the people who do not have their video on and you don't see them raising their hand.
Oh, Hiram, you said yes, right?
Where'd he go?
See,
I don't see.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Okay.
unanimous. Mhm.
All right. Public comment? Is there anyone out there with a raised hand?
No one on Zoom with a hand raised.
Okay, we'll close under public comment and move on to, where are we? Item number 4, residential micro CHP there's Jim Green. Hi, Jim.
Hi, good evening.
Okay, so Jim runs Axiom Energy. He's the CEO, and we heard last month from one of his customers in town and asked Jim if he would make his PowerPoint pitch to us and show us what's going on with cogen, especially as related to residential. So, Jim, why don't you take it away?
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to meet with you all. I will pull up a PowerPoint presentation here and invite anyone to comment or interrupt me if you have any questions during my presentation. So tended to be interactive. So let me know when you see the screen.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. Axiom Energy is located, just for some background information, is located just outside Milwaukee, about 30 minutes and about an hour and a half north of Chicago. We've got a 64,000 square foot facility where we manufacture these micro combined heat and power systems, cogeneration systems. And I'll explain what all that is during the presentation. Essentially, micro combined heat and power technology has been around for quite a while, well over 100 years. So it's a well-established technology. It historically was used in large industrial parks where communities didn't have the infrastructure established to provide the power that was needed for the processes or building processes that were taking place. And so these industrial complexes essentially built their own utilities with this technology. What's unique about our system is it's called micro. It's under 50 kilowatts. In fact, it's under 5 kilowatts. The way the technology works is that you bring in natural gas or propane into the unit and you combust the fuel to generate heat. That heat is then used to provide space heating, radiant heat, or domestic hot water. While the engine is running, it spins an alternator that generates electricity, and that electricity obviously can be used for any purpose in a home or building. Any excess electricity can be sent back to the grid. In comparison to the conventional power utilities, it's very efficient in the sense that in a conventional power plant, for example, 100% of the fuel that goes into generating electricity, only about 35% of it actually reaches the destination. As you go through the distribution, the power lines, about 30% of the 30 to 40% of the fuel that's used to generate the electricity actually reaches its destination. However, with our system, microcombined heat and power, about 93% of the fuel that's used to generate the power actually is converted into electricity or heat. One of the advantages of combined heat and power is that it's pretty resilient. It's not reliant on whether it's daylight or sunny, or if there's a rainstorm or hailstorm that it doesn't work. Because it's powered by propane or natural gas, it's pretty impervious to any inclement weather events. This graph that you see is from the DOE website. So as I mentioned, it's a very well-established technology. If you go to the DOE or EPA websites, they will talk about cogeneration technology being very superior. I won't go through all of this right now. It'll be in the presentation. I can go back to it if there's questions, but this is just some of the advantages. It's very efficient. You can connect systems to make them modular. So if you need 3, 4, 5 systems connected for a particular application, you can do that. As I mentioned, this is micro, so it addresses a very niche market. It's not for large industrial combined heat and power systems cannot address the market we're able to address with this. You can apply it to mobile applications. It helps decentralize the power grid to help it become more resilient. And these systems don't expire into toxic waste as some other renewable equipment does. This is essentially steel. It's an engine, and it's designed to be a very durable and long-lasting engine. This is a picture of the system. It's compact and modular. The system is essentially 2.5 feet wide, 3.5 feet tall, 4.5 feet long. The engine modulates, which means that it'll vary its speed depending on the needs at the facility. So it will generate anywhere from 1.2 to 4.4 kW of electricity. The heat it produces is anywhere from 15,000 to 47,000 BTU per hour. If it's propane, roughly 13,000 to about 43,000 BTU of heat if it's natural gas. The exhaust temperature is relatively low comparative to the engine temperature. I mean, the engine generates heat at around 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, but we capture most of that heat and recycle it into the domestic hot water. So only about 180 degrees Fahrenheit actually leaves the system. So overall efficiency, as I mentioned, is about 93%, and it is very quiet. It's as quiet as a dishwasher. And it is made in USA. In fact, it's made in Wisconsin. We qualify for a made in Wisconsin designation because we source as much as we can from the US, as much as we can in Wisconsin. It's 100% assembled here in Wisconsin. But all the componentry, except for a very few parts, they're all supplied from US manufacturers. This is just this is the engine. If you'll notice that large object on top of the engine is the recuperator, that silver piece, that's what captures the heat. It also scrubs the emissions so that which I'll show you on a later slide, the emissions are very clean. To the left of the engine, you'll see sort of a circular extrusion. That is the alternator. That's what generates the electricity. And you'll see a blue component on the engine and a black cap on that. That's the piston. That's a single cylinder engine. It's a single cylinder, 4-stroke, 8 horsepower engine. It was designed in collaboration with the government at Battelle Labs to be a very durable, long-lasting, highly efficient engine. The unit you'll see in the background there, the micro combined heat and power, that's in our lab. that's got an engine in it that was running in excess of 100,000 hours. If you do the math, there's 8,760 hours in a year. So that's a little over between 11 and 12 years of 24 hours a day operation. Fred Bird, who's one of your residents, who's had one of our systems at his house, has had that, I think, in excess of 12 years. The engine runs very long before it needs any kind of maintenance. We recommend 4,000 hour maintenance intervals. That's about once every 6 months. All that's required is an oil change. So it's an oil change, you change the oil filter, change the spark plug, you change the air filter. If it were a car, it would be the equivalent of going 160,000 miles between oil changes. What is unique about this too, as I mentioned, is that the maintenance cycle on this for once every 6 months is different from many other engines that generate electricity, which require service after only a few hundred hours, which if it ran 24 hours a day would be once, a couple times a week.
What's the cost of the maintenance?
The maintenance kit is around $300 because the oil, that's a good question. The oil is a specially designed oil to run 160,000 miles, essentially, between oil changes to run 6 months so that it doesn't damage the engine. The spark plug is a special spark plug that doesn't misfire once. It cannot misfire one time in 6 months. And the same thing with the air filter and oil filter. Now, can this be changed by a homeowner? The answer is yes. We recommend a contractor be hired to do the service work because it is unlikely then that anything can be done during the oil change or something's damaged. Homeowners sometimes tend to pull on wires or turn knobs or press buttons, and then they call us and say the machine's not working. If a contractor does that, it can be on the contractor to fix.
Like the experts do, yeah.
We recommend it. It can be done by a homeowner, but we just recommend having a contractor because if there's any other service that would be required, they can take care of it. This is the emissions. So the orange is the CARB standard. That's the California Air Resource Board standard. The blue is our result. We are well below the CARBs. I partially ingest suggests that this is like an air freshener because it cleans the emissions so well. You're saving anywhere from 20 to 100 metric tons annually, depending on the grid. I put 20 to 50 metric tons there. It really depends how dirty the grid is or how clean the grid is. If the grid is powered by coal, then if you use one of our systems, you're going to save about 100 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. If the grid is hydro or natural gas, you're saving between 20 metric tons annually on greenhouse gas emissions. So it's clean for the environment and it helps the grid by making the grid more resilient. Here are some typical applications that our system is used: large residential, commercial, senior living facilities, multifamily. That car wash that you see, the commercial, that's actually in Connecticut as well. They have about 500 cars that go through there a day. Our system is used to heat the water at night and fill buffer tanks. And during the day, the cars go through and consume the hot water. Our system is running to keep up. And then at the end of the day, to refill the buffer tanks. The multifamily building you see there, I'm going to show you some utility bills. This one right here, the reason I'm showing you this bill is that people typically think that because we're producing heat or hot water, that its only application is effective during cold winter months and cold climates. And the bills I'm showing you here were for that facility in South Milwaukee during the summer months where the temperatures were in the 90s and 100s. And what you'll notice is that the production of electricity, we installed this system in January, and you'll see that in the January graph, that black bar is the electric. That you'll see it started to dip right away. And that was when we installed our system. Every month after that, it went excess, meaning negative. We were producing more electricity than what the building could consume, the common areas. It was not every apartment. And what I'm showing you there is this, in addition to that, what I'm trying to show is that even in the summer months, we were producing more electricity than the winter months, which counters the conventional wisdom that this is for cold weather climates. And the reason, the explanation for that is during those colder months, there happened to be vacancies at the apartment building. So because our system is designed to produce hot water, in those colder months when there were vacancies at the building, there were fewer people taking showers, fewer people washing dishes, fewer people doing laundry. And so there was a lower demand on our system to run as many hours as it could. So it ran slower, and sometimes it didn't run at all because the building didn't need hot water. In the summer months when there was full occupancy, we were able to run nearly 24 hours a day. And by running more hours, we were producing electricity at higher levels, more hours. Now, the other thing that this is showing you is that in the months that our system was not installed in July of 2021 and August of 2022, the building was consuming anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 kilowatts of electricity a month. And after we installed the system, the building was consuming negative 600 kilowatts, excess 600 kilowatts a month that was going back to the utility. So that was good for the apartment that they were not consuming electricity off the grid, that made the grid more resilient. But what was interesting was that if you look down below, you'll see that we also reduced the gas consumption. In July, you'll see 18.1 therms on average a day down to 14.4. In August, 19 down to 13, I think that is. And then I know there was a month where it was 24 down to 14. And the reason why that dynamic was happening is that our system is designed to run 24 hours a day. And it's only producing 45,000 BTU of thermal energy, whereas a typical water heater is designed to produce 400,000 or 200,000 BTU of thermal energy. I want to go back to a slide here and just show you that if you look in this lab right here, this is a hot water buffer tank. And our system is designed to produce hot water and deposit the hot water in the top of the tank. So this portion of the tank is hot, this portion is cold. A typical water heater is designed to heat the tank from the bottom. And so when a building sends a signal to a water heater that we need hot water, it's because this portion of the tank started to get cold, and the water heater fires on and flashes this tank with 400,000 BTU of thermal energy, and it fires up and heats from down here, and it reheats all this water just to get this top portion of the tank hot again. Our system is designed to read the bottom of the tank. As long as this bottom portion of the tank is cold, our system continues to run. And if it reads that the tank is starting to become saturated, it'll start to slow down, and it would eventually turn off and the entire tank is hot. So our system puts hot water in the top of the tank and water leaves at the top of the tank. So the reason you are consuming less gas is because in the course of a day, I put the analogy with cars. If you have a car that gets 50 miles per gallon and a car that gets 20 miles per gallon, but the car that gets 52 miles per gallon, you slam on the gas and you drive a quarter mile and you stop. And the car that gets 20 miles per gallon, you drive 10 miles an hour, but you're driving that speed the entire day. At the end of the day, you've driven 240 miles. Well, the car that got 50 miles per gallon, that you slammed on the gas and stopped and slammed on the gas and stopped, at the end of the day, you also drove 240 miles. But I guarantee that the car that drove 10 miles an hour, even though it's rated for 20 miles per gallon, I guarantee it got better gas fuel efficiency than the car that was at 50 miles per gallon. And so when you see this dynamic of water heaters that are firing on and they're flashing a buffer tank with 400,000 BTU of thermal energy, but it only runs 2 or 3 minutes and it shuts off. The efficiency is not as good as our system that's running constantly. The other thing that's interesting about this dynamic is the owner of this building had considered putting solar on the building. And this is not to demonize solar. The solar has its place and it's part of the overall solution. But in this application, had he put solar panels on the top of those buildings for the 5 days in Wisconsin that it's sunny, he would have had to put enough solar to generate that amount of electricity. He would have spent more money than our system cost. But those solar panels would have done nothing to generate, excuse me, to reduce the gas consumption. Because the water heaters in that building still would have been firing on and off to generate the hot water and meet the hot water needs. So our system in that building actually relegated the existing hot water heaters to supplemental. They're still there. We didn't remove any, we didn't replace, we simply displaced the water heaters. So they are still there and they still function. It's just that they never turn on because we satisfy all the heating needs of the building for the hot water.
Fred Bird was here last month, right? And what Fred said was he was using the hot water for his pool.
Yes. You can do that.
And, and Jim told me that, you can hook these things up to a heat exchanger, right? And if you have hot air,
Yep.
or you want to change to hot air, you can use the heat exchanger for hot air residentially.
We use 2 of these. I mentioned we have a 64,000 square foot facility. 2 of these are enough to keep our entire facility warm in Wisconsin, even when it's 15 below zero. What we do is you take the hot water, it comes out of our system at 160 degrees, and you run that water through coils and you blow air over the coils and it's out at 105 degrees. You could set this up to connect to your central air system and just run the central air fan constantly and blow the air, and the air would be a constant, steady state. Your house temperature would remain constant. Right now, you'll know your house, it gets warm, and then over time it gets a little colder and your furnace fires on and warms up the house, and then it gets colder. If this ran, it would keep your house at a constant warm state because the air handler would simply be blowing air over the coil, and that would simply be the air that would be going through your central air system.
What's, James, what's the maximum temperature?
The max temperature of the water is 160 degrees.
Okay.
Now, I do know typically people, I think there are standards that say the water for certain applications needs to be 180 degrees.
No, that's for sanitary reasons, James. That has nothing to do with it. That's like a restaurant type scenario. That's like a sanitary thing, 180 degrees more. But for normal houses, you want it 120 degrees or lower.
Right. Yep. So we do have this in restaurants. We do have it in restaurants and they use it for sanitation. I was going to say the 180 degree standard, if historically, what I've been told by experts in the industry, that was an arbitrary standard that was picked years and years ago. It's not necessarily a scientific standard that's got to be based on that. It had to do more with 100 years ago, 80 years ago, there was less efficiency for the radiators heating buildings to keep a building warm because the buildings were not insulated well enough. But so the water does come out.
I don't even think we should touch on that part at this point because I don't know enough about it. So, and you know what? I don't think that has anything to do with the residential or the commercial or the efficiency of your product, which sounds really amazing to me. And I've been in this business for 35 years plus. So,
Yeah. Fred gave us some rough residential kind of numbers for the installation. We'd like to hear your idea about what the ballpark numbers are for this machine.
Let me go through. We'll skip that slide. That just shows a larger building that we put it in. I just wanted to, before we go into the numbers, to lay sort of the reference for you for the typical applications, pool heating, space heating, greenhouse office buildings, hydronic heating, domestic hot water. Typically you want the annual gas consumption to be around 3,000 therms a day. 15 therms a day would keep the system running at full speed at, full RPMs and full output. I would expect for a residential application for the type of home like what Fred has, and I'm told Fred's home is typical in your area, to expect less than 60% of that full capacity output. You can certainly find other uses if you've got a pool and you're using it to heat your house and domestic hot water to bump that number up. But a house can only, depending on the size of the house, generate enough demand for heat. And so our system would accommodate all of that and probably more. So if I were to do, and again, this is simply a estimation for what I would expect it to perform, and then I can get into the cost. If we expect it to run, excuse me, 60% of the time, sort of the max, and the kilowatt rate is 15 cents. Now, the rate might be 15 cents, but if you look at all the taxes, demand charges, everything else, at the end of the day, if you estimate the actual cost is around 30 cents per kilowatt charge. If
We
you're
agree.
And again, these are just assumptions I'm making. I know in Wisconsin, the rate is 13 cents, but actually turns out to be 17 cents when you're looking at, for every kilowatt you're avoiding the taxes on that kilowatt, you're avoiding demand charges, you're avoiding other things. Obviously, there are fixed fees that don't change with this. So we can refine these assumptions. You're in probably a better position to know how these numbers would pan out. But in this hypothetical, if these numbers were used, you would save close to $7,000 a year in annual just on electric charges alone. I'm not even factored in what might happen if you were saving on gas as well. The cost of the unit is $35,000. I'm sure that has changed a little bit from when Fred built this system. It certainly has changed in the last year and a half. Things that are completely out of our control with the cost of components, what's been coming in from the supply chain. The cost unit is $35,000. The cost to install it around here on a typical application is anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. That we peg it at an average of $15,000. So an all-in, you're looking at $50,000. Now, that being said, there are ways, if it is simply just a residential application, probably would be on the lower end for an installation. And depending on how we install this, if it's just simply plugged in and we're only heating domestic hot water, that's about as easy an installation as you can get. If we're now doing hydronic heating, that may add something, it may not. It really is up to the installer and how the house is designed. If you're putting the coils in the air handler system, maybe it adds a cost to it, but maybe not. And if it is, maybe it's not that much. We do have installers available who could probably speak to that and provide estimates. And if we were to do a program in your customer service area and do a bulk installation where we said, okay, we're going to do, and again, I'm just throwing out, these are not hard and fast numbers. Let's just say we were going to do 100 installations in a given month. And we had a schedule and we knew who the people were on the schedule. And we could go in and you could have the installer schedule. We're going to do 2 a day. We'll do 10 a week. We'll get it done over 10 weeks or however it is. We could probably have that down to a science and have that process honed in so that it was a lower cost and maybe do a bulk pricing for everybody. And I'd have to work with the installer on that and have to work with everybody here.
Mhm.
If we just had people call in and order, 1 at a time, we're getting 2 this day. And that way though, to get extended out and we don't know when orders are coming in, it makes it more difficult to manage that schedule. But that would be, the estimate is anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 for the installation.
So what's the payback period, Jim?
Well, if you're saving $7,000 a year just on electricity, and let's say it costs you $50,000, on that, you're looking at around 7 years.
And what's the lifespan? What's the lifespan on that?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, only because if any part were to ever fail, you can simply swap out a part. You don't have to replace the entire system. So even if the engine, let's just say you had a catastrophic failure on the engine entirely, you just swap out the engine, which is a much lower cost than replacing the entire system. As I mentioned before, we've had engines that have lasted over 100,000 hours. The engine is rated 40,000 hours.
So
The
the 7-year payback includes maintenance on that
Yes.
engine, or is that additional?
that would be additional. So if it's seven,
What's my all-in? If I did this at my house, with the best application, with the best fuel energy usage, is it about a 10-year payback?
Yes, I would
Right?
expect
Is that what
better
I'm
than that.
guessing?
In that apartment building example I gave you, that payback was under 6 years. I think it was under 5 years. If the electric charges are, and you know what the thing is too, is electric charges are not going to go down. They're only going to continue to go up. So if you're talking 10 years from now, this math that we just did was factored in on no change in electric charges. There's no cost of increase in that $7,000. So when I did that simple math, I said 7 times 7 is 49. Now, I'm guessing your electric rates are going to go up in the future.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think if you
Went up right
wanted
now.
a 10-year payback, that would be very safe and very doable, and what I would expect that to happen, at least that.
No, but I have to ask these questions so that people,
course.
if they're listening to this, have to know that this is a 7 to 12-year payback, somewhere in that range, depending on what usage is and what advantage you take of the system, whether it be the pool, whether it be the heating, whether it be all those other items. Those are all important. And I'm a huge proponent, by the way, of cogeneration and using this and using the engine for the electric, using the thermal, using all that. I mean, you
Yep.
can get to 80 to 95% efficient or better if you're using some of the byproduct, just to let you know.
Well,
So this
the
is
thing
huge.
is-
If you can do this for some of the larger houses or the small commercial that have a huge thermal need, obviously not the larger engines, but the smaller, this is a huge niche that I've never heard of before.
Right. We are the only manufacturer that has a system commercially available under 5 kilowatts. So I'll
Yeah.
put that out there. And again, what I'm talking about, what you and I have been talking about for the payback was based on a run of 60% capacity. If you put this into an application where it's running 100% of the time, and it is producing 4.5 kilowatts of electricity an hour, and your gas consumption 24 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
a payback in under 5 years, under 4 years.
Yeah, which is what any small business would like 4 or 5. Larger businesses obviously want 3-year payback, but
Yep.
or less. But yeah, no, I mean, that's so a laundry, a restaurant, something like that that's working continuously, something that public.
Even an office building that has
if
air
that's
conditioning in the
paid by us.
summertime. In the wintertime, they need the heat, but in the summertime, when they're running their air conditioner, they use hot water because in the core of the building, it would freeze if they didn't heat it. And a lot of buildings are designed that way. So our system could be used to provide the hot water they need to counteract the condensation and the freezing. It can be used in greenhouses. In fact, there's greenhouses that are talking to us that want to run the emissions. They spend $100,000 a year bringing carbon dioxide into the greenhouse because the plants produce so much oxygen they would suffocate. So now they would just vent our system right into it and capture any carbon emissions that come off our system. So there's all kinds
And a
of.
little bit more difficult than that, James, but you have the theory 100% on that, but obviously, we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, no, but that's still for the residential.
As far as the correct CO2 calculations for greenhouses and things of that sort, that's a whole different ballgame. But as far as the theory and what this does, This is very interesting. I looked it up before the meeting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And I think that there's potentially some opportunities to present this to these a niche number of residents who can actually do that and then take it from there.
yeah.
But-
And, you know, the thing that Fred Bird said last month was he's running it completely off of propane.
Yeah, which is terrific because
So he's not
So
running.
the
he's
power
not-
goes
he's not
down,
on
the
he's
power
not on
goes
natural
down.
gas, Yeah.
he has thermal, he has electricity, he has whatever he needs as long as he doesn't run out of propane.
Right.
That's the key to some of the things we've been looking at for that. It was kind of like the same thing with the generator thing that I
Exactly.
went with the, the durability and the resiliency and things of that sort.
Yeah.
That's key to this, but if you can have the thermal and you can have the electricity at the same time run off of natural gas or propane, then you've covered all of the safety, health, and all the things that we're talking about,
Mhm.
the power and whatnot. So this has some great merit. And sorry, James, but the other stuff, as far as when we go to greenhouses and stuff, that stuff I know very well, so hold off on that stuff right now, because you have to get that in the right thing. It's like using the CO2 to bottle, soda and beer. You need to treat that in the correct way, but you can get, quad generation when you do cogen with that type of method and whatnot, which is totally efficient at 92 to 98% efficient.
So Jim, what, do you need to take like, a couple minutes here just to wind it up? Because then I want to, make sure
Yeah.
that all the committee members have had a chance to chime in, even the ones on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the rest of this is just information. People can review this. I'm sure you'll make this public. This is just additional information that we've covered already. So I think we've covered, this is the little one slide I kind of skipped over. This is just to show that even in larger applications, you can use this system. This was a 110 unit apartment building where the electricity dropped dramatically just with one unit. And in fact, they called back and said, as a trial, we put it in there, and then they call back and said, okay, we want as many of these as you can squeeze into every building we own. So they were very happy with it. And this
Okay.
this
One quick-
car wash right here, that is a propane car wash.
James, that was my next question, was how modular are these? These are modular based upon the thermal and the electric demand, correct?
Based on thermal, that's correct. So you look at what is the thermal load of the facility, and that's going to determine how many of these you'll need, because you could have a high electric demand, but if you don't have any hot water need or any heating need, these become paperweights. They just sit there because their function, they're designed to produce hot water. So if you don't have a hot water need, then unless you're just going to vent the heat and use it as a generator, which we don't recommend, then you really need to have facilities like senior living facilities, a large home with a pool, multifamily, office buildings, things like that have a larger hot water need or thermal demand. Then these are great applications.
So
Okay.
what cogen is basically, just to sum it up, is you size the production of the electricity by the thermal demands. So basically you try to you match the thermal demands only, and then you put the electricity demands in, the engine, the turbine, whatever you put in for that, you match the thermal demand. So if you have a pool, if you have multi-residence, if you have any of those items like you said in Wisconsin, that's what you match it to based upon what you put into your system. So in other words, let's say the YMCA up here, right? Perfect example. Huge thermal needs, showers, pools, heating, steam, all of that, okay? Perfect cogen, because you're basically getting the free thermal or you're getting the free electricity.
Right. I mean, you're already in those applications, you're already using natural gas or propane to provide hot water. We don't change that. All we do is you plug this in, and now maybe use less gas, but now you get the electricity off of it. I mean, you're not getting electricity off the current water heaters.
Right.
Okay.
So you're paying basically 10 to 15% more in the natural gas or propane, but you're getting 40%, 50% more efficiency on the
And I
whole
don't think you're paying more in gas. That's why I'm saying, if you look at this bill, he's paying 30% less in natural gas. And he's getting the free electricity. You're not consuming more gas or propane. That's
Okay.
the point, in the right application.
Alright, Sven,
Okay,
what do
so
we have
did-
for comment?
Yeah, so Jim, you're gonna send me the PowerPoint, right? And
Yes,
then
I
will-
believe you have it already.
I've got one. I don't think I have all these slides.
Okay, I'll make sure after tonight, I will send this to you, Sven.
Yeah, we need the one that you present over, the public TV channel.
Correct.
So you send that to me and I'll make sure that we get that to Bob and the website and all the committee members again.
Yes,
Okay, can you drop your share so we can see our
yes.
Hiram and Karim?
Thank you, James.
Yeah, and I'm
So-
happy, gentlemen and ladies, I'm happy to come out there at any time to meet face to face and cover this. That's not a problem.
Great.
Thank you. Krista?
No, I'm just wrapping my head around that you said the thermal needs and then you kind of like determine the unit based on that. And I think there's certainly
I apologize, I've accidentally muted. If you could unmute, allow me to hear. I accidentally muted the presentation.
Sven, this is Idan. I can't hear the boardroom.
no. Yep.
There we go.
Yeah,
Can you
thank
hear us
you.
now?
Yes,
Okay,
Well, what do you want to tell me?
go ahead.
no, I didn't, I just wanted to hear what you were saying if you had questions.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Well, let's ask Karim. and the
All right,
others. Okay.
Karim, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think it's really interesting. I have solar panels, so I will be keen on comparing your system. And if for instance the solar panel are not covering the full need, do you think it can be we can create a hybrid solution? Would it make sense sometime?
Sure. Our system does collaborate with other renewable energy systems, so it works well with solar. It works well with battery storage. It works well with geothermal. So it's just, you can integrate it into any of those designs. just like your existing water heater works with solar, this would work with solar. It's there to produce water. It just spits off electricity as a byproduct.
Okay.
And Hiram?
Hiram, anything you want us to add?
No, it was very interesting. I look forward to reviewing the materials in more depth. Thank you.
Okay. The only thing that I have to add is our chairman, Rich, gave me his paper estimates. So I'll just run them down quick. 34 White Oak Shade Road is 3734 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, oil, hot water heating, and central air, 2 full-time occupants. And he says his heating oil is $3.39, and he uses 1,939 gallons a year for a cost of $6,572. His electricity, he's got down as 30 cents per kilowatt hour, and he uses 18,000 of those roughly for $5,400, and his total cost in is $11,972, call it $12,000. So he did his cogen estimates. He sat there and said he can buy propane natural gas at 80% of the electric costs. And so he figures 4,320. His oil cost would go to zero. $35,000 worth of equipment. Cost over 5 years is $2,333 per year. And I trust him because he does this all the time, for a total of $6,553. And the delta dollars is a savings of $5,319 per year. So that was Rich's back of the envelope calculation. And anything else? Jim, we're going to say thank you very much and good night.
Well, thank you for allowing me to present this. And as I said, I'm available at any time. And Sven, I will send this to you immediately after I'm off this call.
Thank you, my friend.
Great.
All right,
Have a
everybody,
great
take
night.
care. Hope to hear from you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Okey doke. Close under item 4, open under item 5, cellular coverage, next steps, and I will turn it over to Krista.
Thank you. So as we all know, we have already engaged with Ookla to commission a coverage study, and that is available on the town website. We have also recently asked our residents to download the Ookla app and to conduct tests at home on their cell phones, both with their Wi-Fi turned on and with their Wi-Fi turned off. And this will just create further richness to the maps that we have that are already very, very detailed. But for example, in the 2-acre and the 4-acre zones, a residence could be quite far from the street, and the street is where we conducted our study. So that's an ongoing thing that we will have our residents do. And the results actually automatically go to Ookla. That point, I don't know if that point had been made or not. So we have that. So in terms of us as a commission, what do we want? What action plan do we foresee over the upcoming months? We have this great study, and one of the things that we want to do is to approach the individual carriers, the 4 carriers, to cultivate solutions from them and ask them, what are their ideas, understanding the existing infrastructure that we have and making recommendations on others. In addition, in parallel path, we should also consider sending our coverage study to the CT Siting Council, who is responsible for keeping the carriers honest as well. We already have received one map from the CT Siting Council that unfortunately it combined all of the carriers into one map, and we have not received any detail on the individual carriers since. So we're hoping that this study will help move that process along. personally, because I have notes from other commissioners, so let me speak on behalf of myself. I think that what I would like to see happen is that we, because once we start talking to the individual vendors, it's going to get very detailed. And also, who has the authority to represent the town or not. I don't want it to be one commissioner, picking up the phone and calling Verizon on their own. So one proposal that I have for next year is that we would, and obviously need to budget for it, that we would hire, call it a municipal advocate or an outside consultant of some sort who would do these things, take this study and go reach out to the carriers and have meaningful conversations and keep on it and report back to us on their findings. And, this may not be a full-time position, but as a consultant, it could be a finite project that we define, by hour with a retainer, or it could be a part-time situation. But the end goal would be that we have basically specific proposed solutions from each of the carriers on how to improve service. And that may involve towers, it may not, whatever is possible. I think it's important too, like we were referencing last month when we were talking about the POCD, that we really only explore technologies that are feasible in the next 12 months, because, otherwise this is just kind of kicking the can down the road. So that would be probably the most significant thing that I would like to see us do. I spoke with Jill this afternoon. She agreed with the consultant idea. She also had an idea that we should also perhaps,
Jill Gazzetti.
our
Okay.
fellow commissioner, that we should also present perhaps our maps to the town council to get them involved in the process and to keep, get the study out there in another way. We have it on the website. We've put it in the First Selectmen's newsletter. But to
Yeah,
start a dialogue.
Rich and I are scheduled to go talk to
Are
town
you?
council.
Oh, good. Okay, so
Yeah.
then that's great. And that'll be one of the things, because they're responsible for anything that has to do with town money and town land. So seems appropriate that we would approach them with it. We've talked about bringing in we've talked about bringing in an industry expert to, again, talk about all the potential technologies, if you will. But I see that more as, a research project, not a direct action plan. So that's what I have. Rich also had some great broad stroke ideas about, we also have this, what I call the modeling study that Karim is going to undertake for us as well. So that's great. And that seems to be the wheels are in motion. Rich also felt strongly about establishing formal communications with the service providers and soliciting their solutions. He thinks that we should develop comprehensive inventory on all of our infrastructure that exists now, antennas and towers and whatnot. We need to continue to enhance our communication with the residents. What else does he say here? He would like to see a comprehensive study of all available technologies, and would agree with or advocate hiring a paid consultant for that as well. Developing a plan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So in the analysis that we're doing, we're going to provide a tool that enable you to do what is scenario, meaning you're putting on a certain cell tower with a certain characteristics anywhere in New Canaan, and we can recreate the map. And then we will have the ability to say, okay, if we add 2 cell tower, how many more people are going to be covered? What is going to be the change of the map? And that's going to be a critical negotiation tool to see the different provider. The other aspect is we will be able to do a difference between the current map from the provider and the one that we have measured with Ookla. That will also enable us to, whoever is talking to them, to keep them, honest and with an independent way to look at the coverage and the performances.
I think that's great. I think that will be a key negotiation tool. When you say that you would, forecast and pick locations for towers, how would you propose identifying spots? Should we
So
go
there's
to
a many, yeah.
carriers first?
Mm, so there's many ways to do it. So one way would be from a standpoint of view of marginally increasing the coverage for the least amount of cell tower. So once we have the tool, we can say, find me arbitrary location that will give me the best reception. So that we will know, for instance, that it's the maximum of what we can get, right? And the other aspect would be the other type of scenario is that you give me some locations, specific location, and we can ask the system to say, if I'm constrained to use only this location, what is the best coverage I can get, right? So that will give us something which is never done, actually. I talked to different specialists, is that it will give us the boundary to the problem, meaning what is the best, what is the worst solution, what is the most expensive, what is the cheapest solution, as long as we have the information about the technology, which different provider will give us, right, to confirm. But that's going to be a different way to approach the problem also.
Right, and that takes into account the topography and the heights and
Yeah.
like finding the highest spots in New Canaan.
You're
Okay, 'cause
absolutely right.
there have been historically, I know they exist on the website, that in the past, carriers have identified certain locations in town that, would be the only ones they would explore at the time because it needs to be effective and cost effective. So I think that's great that we can, rely on carriers to direct us, but also just in perfect world scenario, you can just pick based on topography.
Yes, not only the topography, so Richard, ask also us to simulate the leaves on the tree. So because we have the location of the tree, adding the leaves will give us an attenuation, and that will simulate that in the worst condition, what's going to be the coverage, right?
Right.
So without redoing the past and the locations that these folks have spent, the carriers have spent money on, where is that information and where's that data?
So the data is in fact, so like Ookla, we measure a quite large grid that give us with the current cell tower, where is the reception. So
I'm
there
talking
is
about future ones, Corinne. I'm talking
yeah,
about the
sure.
ones
No,
that
I
they have
understand.
identified
it's-
in the past.
It's important because the future one, the system is going to learn how, when you put cell tower, what are the challenges? Meaning, you still need to know like how many trees there is and the blockage and how the waves are distributing and diffusing in the land. So we have a real truth, which is what we have done with the measurement of Ookla.
Right.
Once we have that, putting new cell tower, the new cell tower they have what we call like you can see as a characteristic of how do they spread in the space, right? And combining that with all the information of the tree and the leaves, we can actually guess and simulate where the coverage is going to be. So that's mean anywhere where we had a good coverage by Ookla test, we will have a high confidence on when we create a virtual or synthetic, something that does not exist really, what will be its future coverage. Does it make sense? Does it answer your question first?
No, yeah, that totally answers my question. That, I
Let me
understand
just
that.
give you some of the background here, okay? So, what has been proposed, as, tower sites are primarily in the past, they've been pieces of town-owned property.
Right, well,
Okay.
for good reason.
Dump Park, Irwin Park,
Mhm.
West School, pick a piece of
Reservoir.
property, okay?
Mhm.
Politically and realistically, is there an appetite by town government to put a tower onto, town property? The answer to that has been unanimously no. Now, there are people out there, who would support that, but there's never been a majority on anybody to do that. Okay?
Right,
So where will the towers go? If there is a tower and it turns out that it's technically the right thing to do, the answer is it will go up on private property.
Yeah.
Okay?
or land trust, right.
Mhm.
Which,
I think the land trust definitely does not want to get into the business of posting cell towers. And I've heard that from some very important members of the land trust. Anyway, we'll let that sit.
yeah,
Let's finish off Rich's list and then we can move on and crank through.
Okay, well, you could, I mean, I've covered it. I think the last point about two-way communication plays into things that you wanted to mention, so.
Yeah, Sven's list is primarily, I'll beat my drum again.
There you go.
How do we? Thank you.
Beat that drum.
How do we have a means for residents and businesses to make a connection to New Canaan's 911 emergency dispatch center? That there's a lot of different workarounds for that. Okay. And I had the cheat sheet and we'll try and push that out. The other one that we've heard, from talking with our department heads, a means for fire, police, EMS and DPW to access mobile wireless voice and data. Okay, while they're out in the field. Okay, running around in cars, trucks, ambulances, yada, yada. So that's an important thing. And then a means for anyone at any time, right? Moving about town on foot, on bike, in a vehicle to reliably access 911 dispatch. So there's that. I'm going to break away from cells.
On that note, have we looked at the SOS coverage? Has anybody tested the SOS coverage from satellite in regards to when you have no coverage, you always have that little icon that says emergency only? I personally have never tested it, so I'm not sure. Do we know anybody to ask about that to see if that happened, if a biker went down, if something happened, an accident, who knows what?
Mhm.
Is that really work on your cell phone?
Well, you need,
Russ.
you need a Pixel 9 or you need an Apple 16.
And it will work.
That's it.
Yeah. Those are the two
I
machines. that
don't
can
have
do
a
it.
16.
Yeah, I know you don't. Very few people do right now.
I didn't even know there was a 16 at this point,
I
sorry.
think it's a 16.
Okay.
Anyway, it's, and,
But our emergency management system probably has a handle on,
But why would our phone say SOS on them when it's not available? I'm just,
right.
I don't
You're
need to get into
creating
it.
a
I'm just,
hypothetical,
I'm
right?
creating if
You're
it
gonna
says it, I
crawl to
want it
your
to work.
car and then press that.
Listen,
SOS.
I did Out of the Woods once, so in the middle of nowhere, so don't worry about that.
so I know we're talking about cell service, but the other two things I wanted to bring up was
Sorry.
electric power utility resilience, right? Cost efficient alternatives like we discussed tonight,
Mhm.
primarily for residential small business. I think larger businesses and care facilities, et cetera, got different options
Yeah, I mean,
And-
the larger facilities and town facilities.
Yeah,
they-
are not going to be way
Right,
over that.
and the resilience part is, we will have a member of the utility come in and talk to us about all the resilience, the investment, and what they're looking at, as well as the cost per mile of some of these areas. I've engaged them. They're not quite comfortable yet. They're pulling their stuff together,
Okay.
but in the next couple of months, I'm sure that we'll have some success in bringing them in, and we have all these nice new shiny poles.
Yeah, so that, which brings me now to the last point, which was, it sort of backs into, what do we do? What are some of the alternatives for cell? Has been Wi-Fi, of course, we all push Wi-Fi at home, right? So cable, data and voice utility,
Mhm.
their system resiliency for the distribution media and for switching.
Right.
It is the internet. I've been doing internet for a long time. And, the whole part of this was that everything was going to be multi-switched, multimedia, multi-route, and, it was going to be impossible to knock down. Of course, we found out that, somebody stealing cable in Norwalk is completely capable of knocking the system out.
Knocking the whole system out.
So that's not resilience to me. Anyway, that covers me.
So that's what we wanted to talk about some tangible things. So what I can do is do a little write-up maybe that consolidates everyone's thoughts.
Well, I was gonna ask the people who are on the call tonight, what else they wanted. So Kareem, since you're on hot on the cell for us, is there anything you would like to add to
Action
where action items going forward?
In what context? Can you like?
In the
I'm sorry,
context of
I don't understand the question. Can you expand a little bit? Like, so.
with respect to improving cell service or any
Oh,
of
yeah,
our
yeah.
utilities, what would you like to improve over the next 6 months? I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
so
bullet points.
I can give you my personal experience where so I had zero reception in my house, right? Like literally nothing. So as a experiment, because I'm curious, I ask, like, for instance, the AT&T to give me a micro cell. It was increasing like by 1 bar, but nothing like great, right? And then I talked to some of some people that work in the domain and that I ex-colleague, and then they told me, like, you should really try. There's new microcell that are not attached to one vendor, right? And the principle, I think Uclau mentioned it in certain point, is that the carrier in a way will dictate the priority on your phone, right? Which cell tower you pick and stuff like that. So this type of new material enable you to override what the provider are doing, and you can decide to attach yourself to a given cell tower, and plus with a satellite and plus on other interesting aspect. So I'm going to make the story short, but so I use these things. It cost 300 something. It puts a tiny antenna which is covered like a white box that I put on top of my roof that you can barely see. And then I got the full bar. And everybody who comes to my home, it doesn't matter which provider they are, they get the full bar. So I think it would be good to get this some of these people who are selling this type of microcell tower and explain to us, like, what's the advantage and what's the limitation of the system.
Who's your vendor?
Oh, I just downloaded. I bought the stuff on Amazon. It's called High Boost. It's the brand is High Boost, and that's it. And so it's we can, I'm sure, contact. There's many of them, so I just tested for the fun of it, and it's really working like amazing.
Do
So
you,
if it's critical, if it's not critical, you get high boost. If it's critical, you get Starlink and you're covered.
Yeah, but
When
it
you-
goes also via the satellite, right? That's the fun thing. So it does, for instance, in my house. So the system analyze around the space, right? And so you just put the antenna high enough so you can see the sky, and then he's able to, I don't know by what miracle, to connect to 10 satellite.
Excellent.
Great. Yeah, that's fine.
okey-doke.
I think that's a great action item that we will have such a vendor come speak to us
Or two.
ASAP.
Yeah.
Okay, Sam. So because this is like not 6 months, this is like,
Right.
I went on Amazon the 2 days next 2 day, I put it up and it was working, right?
Right. Immediate gratification. Did you need an electrician to hardwire it to your
No.
roof or
No, it's
just get up there
it's a
and
load. Yeah, I just went on my roof. That's it. Like, so I'm a daredevil, but beyond that, I think
I knew that about you, Karim.
Okay.
I know you're passing next to my house, so you saw me
I'm-
jumping on my roof.
All right, well, then we
Okay.
have to do that.
So we will, yes,
We'll
I
take a
will,
look.
we'll absolutely do that. Excellent feedback. Thank you.
One quick thing is we should ask Ookla if that was widespread, how that would work.
Yeah, we can think about that.
Okay.
Hiram?
Hiram, yeah.
No, we'll actually ask the vendors.
And also in the cost of the cell tower, like maybe let me say something silly, but for the cost of a cell tower, how many booster can you install?
Yes,
Yeah, we understand.
exactly.
It's like,
Mm.
because like then we can say, hey, get even us, as a city, if we go to the vendor, we say we're going to give you 100 customers, instead of making us pay $300, can you do 200?
Mhm. Great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Great idea.
It's
Okay.
the same thing with undergrounding wires versus putting generators in.
Yeah.
What's the cost differential?
Hiram, are you out there? Would you like to add something?
Nothing as specific as what people have talked about. I think there's a fair amount of follow-up work from the discussions we've had in the last couple of months, but I think more of a focus on the electric resiliency and the undergrounding. I think we need to sort of get some numbers or get some, just really put something in front of the public so that people are aware of it. I think it's part of the information flow that we need to get people aware, or at least how to access it, to make sure that it's easily accessible and we understand it. So that's all I have.
Yeah, Hiram, it's hard to get specific numbers for undergrounding in different areas of different utilities. As far as the electric part is one thing, you have the undergrounding of the cable, you have the undergrounding of the phone, you have the undergrounding of the other cable company. All that stuff, if that's the key to getting this thing done and keep getting resiliency, then you need all those things undergrounded. If it's just the power, that's a whole nother ballgame, and you still have the poles. Would you have the communications and the other stuff on, and the power going underground, and where does that make the most difference? And those figures are based on topography, and they're based on whatever, and we will never, ever get a specific number. We'll get a ballpark number on that. And if you want, when I get the person in the next month or two, I'll get a cost per mile in a range, obviously, based upon what that would be for undergrounding and what the effect of that would be, supposedly if 2 miles, 1 mile, 5 miles, or 10 miles were put underground, what that effect would have on resiliency. And that's what I've been shooting for. That's what we're looking for. The challenge is getting someone to say it.
Right. No, I mean, I think the exact numbers aren't, you're right. There's no way it's going to be made, but to take it from a discussion point to a framework that people will, the town officials or the public can sort of understand and evaluate. I think it's maybe that becomes our role of trying to take the impossible specific number to something that gives people context of whether it's like, oh yeah, well, no, we'll never do that. Or like, okay, maybe here, and requires further study. I think our role can be to try to bridge that as best we can. Otherwise, it just never gets beyond conversation piece. It's
No,
hard.
I
but-
understand,
Yeah.
I understand that. The question is the last time we had someone in that was talking about the underground circuits and the updates in town and things of that sort, did give a dollar estimate as far as what that would be. And maybe we should memorialize that, and I'll look back on the minutes of that and come out with that, and also come up with a future context of someone coming on board to give a budget number.
Yeah.
And that being said, I think we got to kill it at that, because we can go
Yeah.
around in circles, because it's a forever topic.
Yeah,
Exactly,
my whole life is based on, on
exactly.
looking at ballpark figures and moving forward. But, one data point is one data point. 2 data points I can draw a line between.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right. Yep, exactly.
okay.
And give a guesstimate.
Let's see.
Okay.
Bernie had to step out. He was having a
Coughing
Coughing.
attack. I logged on, so I'm on the,
That's what I was checking
All
for.
right, Bernie. do you
Bernie,
have any-
you're up.
well, I really didn't have anything too much specific. I do think a list of some of the technologies that are out there right now and available, like this thing that Karim has uncovered. Somehow or the other, if the industry expert we were talking about coming in could help us with that. I just don't know all the things that are out there that could possibly help us, besides the cell tower concept. That was really my input.
Okay. Jill, I got your text. Did you make it on?
Or Jill's-
Okay.
Janae?
Janae, did you make it?
He's not on.
Okay, Janae's not on. I think that covers everybody. We know where Rich is, so.
So again, I'll kind of assemble the thoughts and make sure we have a list.
Okay, so then we're just gonna go once more around the room for anything else. Anything else that you want to bring up, Krista?
No, I mean, I think going to the next topic, cell communication activities.
Right,
I've communicated that we've been speaking to the residents through the First Selectmen's newsletter, and that's kind of it for now. And Karim, do you have anything else to add about the upcoming work that you're doing?
No, it's so we still have some issue on loading the data, but that should be solved this week. And when this is done, then we are going to I can update regularly the committee and all its member of the progress that is done. Okay,
thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
welcome.
All right, and I don't have a report. That's
Okay.
kind of it, so.
All right. Bernie, anything else tonight?
No, sir.
Karim, last words?
Go New Canaan.
Hiram, last words?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Mike?
Good.
Sven's good. Sven will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Mike?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Bye.
you very much, folks. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.